The desperate signal commander Sarah Chen had seen many strange things during her 15 years running Aurora's watch. The deep space monitoring station that orbited Neptune like a silent guardian. But nothing had prepared her for the signal that arrived on a cold Tuesday morning in 2387. The massive station hummed with its usual activity as Chen walked through the observation deck, her boots clicking against the metal flooring. Through the reinforced windows, Neptune's blue storms swirled in their eternal dance, while the station's enormous sensor arrays pointed toward the vast darkness between stars, listening for whispers from distant worlds. Dr. Alex Rivera burst into the command center, his dark hair disheveled and his eyes wide with excitement. The xenolinguist had been working non-stop for 3 days, trying to decode a faint transmission that had reached them from the Kepler 442 system, nearly 1,200 light-years away. "Commander, you need to see this immediately," Rivera said, his voice trembling as he connected his tablet to the main display. "The signal we detected isn't just random noise. It's a message, and it's directed specifically at Earth." The main screen filled with wave patterns and frequency analysis that looked like abstract art to most of the crew. But Chen had learned to read these displays over the years, and something about this pattern felt different, more organized, more desperate. Lieutenant Maya Okafor looked up from her tactical station, her sharp eyes focused on the display. The former fighter pilot had joined Aurora's watch after losing her squadron in a training accident, seeking the quiet of deep space. But her instincts for danger were still razor-sharp. "Doctor, what kind of message are we talking about?" Rivera's fingers danced across his controls, isolating different sections of the transmission. "It's a distress call, but not from any human source. The mathematical patterns are completely alien, yet somehow they knew exactly which frequency would reach us. They've been studying us." Engineer Tom Bradley emerged from beneath a control panel, his coveralls stained with lubricant and his weathered hands holding a diagnostic tool. The man had kept Aurora's watch running for over a decade, and he understood every sound the station made. "Doc, that signal traveled over 1,000 light-years to get here. Whatever sent it knew we'd be listening." Chen settled into her command chair, feeling the artificial gravity pull her down as her mind raced through the implications. They were the furthest human outpost from Earth, positioned specifically to watch for threats from deep space. If someone had sent them a message, it meant Earth was either in danger or being invited to help with something beyond human understanding. "Can you translate it?" Chen asked. Rivera nodded, his excitement barely contained. "I've been working with the AI translation matrix, cross-referencing mathematical constants and universal physical laws. The language structure is unlike anything in our databases, but I'm getting coherent patterns." The speakers crackled to life with sounds that seemed to bypass the ears and speak directly to the soul. Alien voices, melodic and desperate, speaking. Words that the computer slowly converted into broken English. "People of the Death World, Earth," the translation began, each word heavy with emotion. "We are the Zephyrians of the Kepler 442 system. Our civilization faces extinction from an enemy we cannot defeat. The void swarm consumes everything in its path, leaving only silence and darkness behind." Chen felt her blood turn cold. This wasn't a routine first contact scenario. This was a cry for help from a dying civilization. The message continued, painting a horrific picture of an enemy that devoured entire star systems. "The swarm does not negotiate. It does not show mercy. It consumes all organic matter and converts it into more of itself. 17 civilizations have fallen to its hunger. We are the last major world in its path before it continues toward the galactic core. Lieutenant Okafor stood up, her military training taking over. Commander, they mentioned Earth specifically. How do they know about us? The alien voices answered her question before Rivera could respond. We have studied the radio signals from your world for decades. You call yourselves humans, but we know what you truly are. You are Deathworlders, survivors of a planet that should have killed you 1,000,000 times over. Your gravity is 3 times stronger than ours. Your atmosphere is toxic to most galactic species. Your weather systems are violent beyond imagination, yet you thrive. Rivera paused the translation, his face pale. Commander, they're not just asking for help. They believe we're their only hope because of where we come from. The message resumed with increasing urgency. Every species the swarm has encountered surrendered when faced with impossible odds. But Deathworlders do not surrender. You fight. In environments that would kill us simply by existing there. You adapt to threats that would eliminate entire civilizations. You find ways to win when victory should be impossible. Chen walked to the main viewport and stared out at the stars. Somewhere among those distant lights, an alien species was facing extinction because they believed humans were their salvation. The weight of that responsibility settled on her shoulders like a physical burden. There's more, Rivera said quietly. They've included star charts, tactical data about the swarm, and something else. A warning. The alien voices returned, now, speaking with the clarity of beings who knew they were recording their civilization's final words. The void swarm learns from each species it consumes. It will study your responses and adapt its tactics accordingly. But we believe you have something it has never encountered before. You have the fury of survivors who refuse to accept defeat. Engineer? Bradley had stopped working and was listening intently. Commander, if these aliens are right about this swarm thing, it won't stop with their system. Something that consumes entire civilizations doesn't just disappear. The translation confirmed his fears. After the swarm finishes consuming our worlds, it will continue its expansion toward the galactic center. Your Earth lies directly in its projected path. We estimate it will reach your solar system in approximately 47 of your years. Chen turned back to her crew, seeing her own thoughts reflected in their faces. Earth had no idea what was coming. Humanity's small fleet of exploration vessels and orbital defense platforms would be helpless against an enemy that had already destroyed 17 different civilizations. Doctor, how reliable is this translation? She asked. Rivera checked his work one final time. The mathematical constants check out perfectly. The stellar navigation data is accurate to our own measurements. Commander, I believe this message is genuine. Lieutenant Okafor activated her tactical displays, showing long-range sensor data from the Kepler 442 system. I'm detecting energy signatures consistent with large-scale warfare in that region. Whatever's happening out there, it's been going on for months. The final part of the alien message played with heartbreaking clarity. We do not expect to survive the next phase of the swarm's assault. Our defensive fleets have been reduced to scattered survivors hiding among dead worlds. But we send this message in hope that the Deathworlders of Earth will succeed where we have failed. The galaxy needs species that refuse to surrender when surrender is the logical choice. Chen made her decision. Tom, prepare a priority transmission. To Earth Command. Full encryption. Tell them we have confirmed hostile alien activity approaching human space. Bradley's expression was skeptical. Commander, Earth Command has been reducing deep space military budgets for years. They might not take an alien threat seriously. Then we make them take it seriously, Chen replied firmly. Maya, I want you to start analyzing the tactical data. These Sephorians included. Find weaknesses in this swarm's attack patterns. For the next 6 hours, Aurora's watch became a hive of activity as the crew worked to understand the threat heading toward humanity. Rivera continued refining the translation, discovering more details about the Void Swarm's capabilities and weaknesses. Okafor studied alien battle reports, learning how 17 different civilizations had fallen to the same enemy. Bradley began calculating the resources Earth would need to mount any kind of effective defense. The response from Earth Command arrived faster than expected. Admiral Marcus Webb's weathered face appeared on the main screen, his expression a mixture of skepticism and concern. Commander Chen, I've reviewed your report about this alleged alien threat. I have to say, this sounds like something out of a science fiction novel. Chen stood at attention. Admiral, we have confirmed energy signatures from the Kepler 442 system, indicating large-scale conflict. The mathematical data included in the alien transmission checks out perfectly. This is not a false alarm. Webb's expression didn't change. Even if your analysis is correct, these events are happening over 1,000 light-years away. It's not our immediate concern. Sir, according to the alien projections, this void swarm will reach Earth in less than 50 years. That's barely enough time to prepare any kind of defense. The Admiral paused, considering her words. Commander, what exactly are you suggesting we do about a threat that's over a millennium away and may not even be heading in our direction? Chen took a deep breath, knowing her next words would either save humanity or end her career. Sir, I'm suggesting we respond to their distress call. We help these Euphorians fight the swarm, and we learn everything we can about our enemy before it arrives at our doorstep. Webb's expression shifted from skepticism to surprise. You want to send human forces over 1,000 light-years away to fight in an alien war? I want to send human forces to defend our future, Chen replied. Admiral, every species this swarm has encountered has tried to fight them conventionally and failed. But humans don't fight conventionally. We adapt. We improvise. We refuse to accept defeat when any rational species would surrender. For a long moment, Webb said nothing. Then his expression changed to something Chen had never seen before. Determination mixed with what might have been excitement. Commander Chen, what I'm about to tell you is classified at the highest levels. Humanity has been preparing for interstellar threats for decades. We have ships and weapons that the public doesn't know exist. We've been waiting for a reason to use them. Chen felt her heart racing. Sir, how long would it take your team to plot a course to the Kepler 442 system? Webb asked. Approximately 18 hours for complete navigation data, Okafor answered. Immediately, Webb nodded grimly. You have 12 hours. We're going to show this void swarm what happens when they threaten Deathworlders. As the transmission ended, Chen looked round at her crew. Rivera was already pulling up star charts and calculating hyperspace routes. Okafor was reviewing tactical data with the intensity of a predator studying prey. Bradley was running diagnostics on systems that would help coordinate the largest military operation in human history. Aurora's watch had received a desperate cry for help from a dying civilization. Now Earth was about to answer that call with the full fury of a species that had never learned how to surrender. The message from the Zephyrians had awakened. Something in humanity that had been sleeping since the end of Earth's last global conflict. The instinct to fight when fighting seemed impossible. The refusal to let others face extinction alone. The determination to prove that Deathworlders were exactly as dangerous as the galaxy suspected. Chen walked back to the viewport and looked out at the stars, knowing that somewhere among them, an alien species was about to learn why Earth had produced the most adaptable, stubborn, and dangerous sapient species in the galaxy. The war for galactic survival was about to begin, and humanity was bringing everything they had learned from surviving on a world that tried to kill them every single day. Deathworlders, United Moral Marcus Webb, stood on the bridge of the Terran flagship Indomitable and watched humanity's secret fleet emerge from hyperspace near the Kepler 442 system. What he saw through the viewports would have terrified any species that truly understood what they were looking at. The human fleet didn't look like the graceful vessels favored by most spacefaring civilizations. These ships were built like mechanical predators, their hulls covered in angular armor, plating and weapon systems that could engage targets from multiple directions simultaneously. Each vessel was designed with one purpose in mind: winning fights that should be impossible to win. Captain Alina Vasquez floated beside Webb in the observation bubble of her experimental warship Terran Fury, her magnetic boots keeping her anchored as they surveyed the devastation around them. The Kepler 442 system had once been home to billions of Zephyrians living on 3 different worlds. Now, massive debris fields marked where planets used to orbit their star. Admiral Long Range, sensors are detecting massive energy signatures throughout the system, reported Lieutenant Commander James Park from the sensor station. Whatever happened here, it was recent and thorough. Webb nodded grimly. The human fleet consisted of 47 warships of various classes, each one carrying weapons and defensive systems that had been developed in secret over the past 30 years. Earth's governments had been preparing for interstellar threats since the first radio telescopes detected signs of intelligent life among the stars. Dr. Rivera's voice came through the communication system from his position aboard the command ship. Admiral, I'm detecting faint signals from the outer planet in this system. It appears to be a heavily damaged space station, but there are life signs aboard. Captain Vasquez, take your squadron and investigate, Webb ordered. Full stealth protocols. We don't know if the Void Swarm is still in the area. Vasquez nodded and activated her ship's cloaking systems. The Terran Fury and her escort vessels seemed to shimmer and disappear as they advanced. Camouflage technology bent light around their hulls. Within minutes, they were racing toward the source of the alien signals. The space station they found was a masterpiece of alien architecture that had been torn nearly in half by weapons that could crack moons. Elegant spires and crystalline structures lay shattered and bleeding atmosphere into the void. But deep within the wreckage, environmental systems still functioned, keeping a small group of survivors alive. This is Captain Vasquez of the Terran fleet. She transmitted on the frequency the Zephyrians had used to contact Earth. We received your distress call. We're here to help. The response came immediately, filled with an emotion that needed no translation: relief. Deathworlders, you came. We... We didn't believe you would actually come. The voice belonged to someone whose civilization had just been destroyed, yet who still maintained hope. I am Kethera, formerly of the Zephyrian Defense Corps. We are all that remains. Vasquez felt something cold settle in her stomach. An entire star system reduced to a handful of survivors hiding in a damaged station. Kethera, this is going to sound strange, But we need you to tell us everything about the Void Swarm. How they fight, how they think, what their weaknesses are. Weaknesses? The alien's voice carried bitter laughter. Captain, the swarm doesn't have weaknesses. They are a hive mind that learns from every battle. They adapt faster than any individual species can counter. They consume organic matter and convert it into more of themselves. They have destroyed civilizations that have thousands of years of military experience. Captain Vasquez looked at her. Tactical Officer, Lieutenant Sarah Kim, who was already analyzing the data streaming from the Zephyrian station. Kim had spent her entire career studying alien military technologies, and her expression was grim as she processed the information. Captain, based on this data, the swarm uses coordinated swarm tactics with millions of small attack craft supported by massive bioships. They overwhelm enemy defenses through sheer numbers, while their larger vessels consume planetary ecosystems. Vasquez opened a channel to Admiral Webb. Sir, we have survivors aboard the station, and they're sharing tactical data about the swarm. The situation is worse than we thought, but I think I understand why they called us. Webb's voice was steady, despite the magnitude of what they were facing. Explain, Captain. Admiral, every species the swarm has encountered has tried to fight them like a conventional military force. Organized fleets, defensive positions, predictable tactics. But humans don't fight like that when we're desperate. We fight like cornered animals. On the bridge of the indomitable Webb was studying holographic displays showing the projected path of the Void Swarm through the galaxy. His tactical staff had been analyzing Zephyrian battle reports for the past hour, and they were reaching the same conclusion as Captain Vasquez. Admiral, called out Commander Lisa Torres from the Strategic Planning Station. I've been reviewing how other species responded to swarm attacks. They all followed logical military doctrines: defensive formations, organized retreats, negotiation attempts. Every single approach failed. Webb turned to face his senior staff. These were military officers who had trained their entire lives for scenarios that seemed impossible. Now they were facing an enemy that had never been defeated, using tactics that no human military academy had ever taught. What are you suggesting, Commander? Webb asked. Torres stood and activated the tactical display, showing the current positions of human forces throughout the system. Sir, we stop thinking like a military force and start thinking like survivors. The swarm expects organized resistance. We give them chaos. The plan that emerged over the next 4 hours would have been considered insane by any conventional military standard. Instead of meeting the swarm in organized fleet combat, the humans would scatter throughout the system. Like guerrilla fighters, they would use asteroid fields for cover, turn space debris into weapons, and coordinate attacks using methods that no hive mind could predict because they relied on individual initiative rather than central command. Captain Vasquez had transported Cathara and the other Zephyrian survivors aboard the Terran Fury, where the aliens were getting their first close look at actual Deathworlders. The Zephyrians were tall, elegant beings with crystalline features and graceful movements. Next to humans, they looked like delicate flowers trying to survive in a hurricane. Your species is different than we expected, Cathara admitted as he studied the human crew. We knew you came from a high-gravity world with dangerous weather, but we didn't understand what that meant. Lieutenant Kim was showing the alien tactical officer the specifications for human equipment. Our armor is designed to operate in environments that would kill most species. Our weapons are built to function underwater, in vacuum, or at temperatures that would freeze most beings solid. We don't just adapt to harsh conditions, we thrive in them. Cathara's crystalline features showed something that might have been awe or terror. Your people trained for combat in conditions that we would consider lethal disasters. That's because disasters are just Tuesday for us. Kim replied with a grin that was probably meant to be reassuring but came across as slightly predatory. The conversation was interrupted by alarms throughout the ship. The Void Swarm had arrived. Admiral Webb watched the enemy fleet drop out of hyperspace and felt his tactical instincts shift into a mode he had never experienced before. The swarm consisted of millions of small attack craft surrounding massive organic vessels that looked like they had been grown rather than built. Each bioship was the size of a small moon, covered in weapons that could sterilize continents. All ships, execute Operation Deathworld, Webb commanded. The human fleets scattered like startled fish, but their movements weren't random. Each ship knew exactly where it was going and what it needed to do. They dove into asteroid fields, used planetary debris for cover, and began implementing tactics that no organized military force would ever consider. Captain Vasquez piloted the Terran Fury through a field of crystalline fragments that had once been a Zephyrian city ship. Her crew worked with the calm efficiency of people who had trained for this moment their entire lives. The ship's adaptive camouflage made it nearly invisible among the space debris, while its weapons systems locked onto swarm targets with predatory precision. Contact, multiple small craft approaching our position, reported Lieutenant Kim. There, moving in perfect formation, just like the tactical data predicted. Vasquez smiled with the expression of someone who is about to do something that would probably be considered a war crime by any civilized species. Fire the gravity mines. The weapons that erupted from the Terran Fury were not conventional explosives. They were gravitational anomalies that created localized space-time distortions, tearing the swarm's perfect formations apart and sending their attack craft tumbling into each other like leaves in a hurricane. Throughout the system, similar scenes played out as human crews implemented tactics that no enemy could predict because they were based on improvisation rather than doctrine. Commander Torres used her destroyer to drag an asteroid into a collision course with a swarm bioship. Lieutenant Commander Park's cruiser hid inside the wreckage of a Zephyrian space dock and emerged to fire point blank into a swarm formation. Captain Miller's frigate used its engines as weapons, creating plasma streams that cut through enemy vessels like a sword through paper. The Zephyrian survivors aboard the human ships watched in amazement as the Deathworlders fought with a combination of advanced technology and primal fury that no other species had ever demonstrated. "How are they doing this?" Cathara asked. Dr. Rivera, who was monitoring the battle from the Terran Fury's bridge. "Every species the swarm has encountered has been destroyed within hours. Your people have been fighting for 6 hours, and you're winning." Rivera paused his analysis of swarm communication patterns to look at the alien. "Because we're not fighting the way you fought. We're fighting the way humans fight when everything is on the line. We adapt, we improvise, and we absolutely refuse to give up." The turning point came when Admiral Webb realized something that no other species had understood about the Void Swarm. Their hive mind was their greatest strength, but it was also a weakness that could be exploited. All ships concentrate fire. On the largest bioship, Webb commanded, "I don't think we can kill it, but I want to hurt it badly enough to get its attention." The combined firepower of the human fleet focused on a single target, pouring energy and kinetic weapons into its organic hull until the creature's screams could be felt through hyperspace. The bioship began calling its smaller craft back to defend it, breaking the coordinated attack patterns that had destroyed 17 civilizations. Now, Webb shouted, all units, execute individual initiative protocols. What happened next would have been impossible for any other species to coordinate. Every human ship in the system began operating independently, using their own judgment and creativity to engage the enemy. The swarm's hive mind, which had been designed to predict and counter-organize tactics, found itself facing dozens of individual threats that each fought differently. Captain Vasquez used her ship's atmospheric processors to create a cloud of superheated gas that cooked swarm-attacked craft like insects in a flame. Commander Torres fired her ship's emergency escape pods filled with explosives into a bioship's feeding tentacles. Lieutenant Commander Park played dead until a swarm vessel came close enough to investigate, then detonated his ship's reactor core to take out 3 enemy bioships simultaneously. The battle raged for 18 hours, longer than any engagement the Void Swarm had ever fought. When it finally ended, the system was filled with the wreckage of both fleets. But the swarm had been stopped for the first time in its existence. Admiral Webb stood on the bridge of his damaged flagship and surveyed the aftermath. They had lost 12 ships and over 3,000 crew members, but they had achieved something that no other species had managed. They had made the Void Swarm retreat. Kethera approached Webb with an expression of wonder and gratitude. Admiral, your species has done something we thought was impossible. You have shown the galaxy that the swarm can be defeated. Webb nodded grimly. This was just the first battle, Kethera. They'll learn from this encounter and adapt their tactics. But so will we. That's what Deathworlders do best. The communication system activated with a priority message from Earth Command. President Maria Santos appeared on the screen, her expression showing the weight of leading humanity into its first interstellar war. Admiral Webb, we've been monitoring your battle from long-range sensors. The entire galaxy is watching. Word is spreading that the Void Swarm has been defeated for the first time in recorded history. Webb straightened his uniform and faced his commander-in-chief. Madam President, we've bought the galaxy some time, but this war is far from over. The swarm will be back, and they'll be ready for our tactics. Santos nodded. Then we'd better be ready for theirs. Admiral, by executive order, you're hereby appointed Supreme Commander of the Galactic Defense Force. Any species that wants to fight the swarm fights under human command, using human tactics. As the transmission ended, Webb looked around at his crew and the Zephyrian survivors who had witnessed humanity's first victory in interstellar warfare. They had answered a desperate call for help from across the galaxy, and in doing so, they had awakened something that the universe had never seen before. The Void Swarm had encountered Deathworlders, and for the first time in their existence, they had learned what it meant to face a species that simply refused to accept defeat. The war for galactic survival had begun, and humanity was ready to show the universe why Earth had produced the most dangerous sapient species in the galaxy. The age of human expansion into the stars had begun not with exploration or trade, but with the simple act of refusing to let others face extinction alone. And across the galaxy, other species were beginning to understand that when Deathworlders came to help, victory became possible even in the face of impossible odds.